Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Thursday. It is the 18th day of August 2022. And I hope that this day, this Thursday, August 18th, finds you safe and healthy. And I hope that could also be said for your family in terms of safety and health, and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met today. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field and those who are the first responders, trying every day with one sole purpose, to save human lives. Blessings upon those also that pick up garbage for us to keep streets and sidewalks and parks and rec clean. And those that make deliveries for our convenience of food and clothing, furniture, and all kind of things. Blessings also upon those that are helping to seek, rescue, deliver, recover the victims of child molestation, the teenagers and children that are the victims of child molestation and pedophilia, as well as other victims of prostitution and child prostitution, of pornography and child pornography. The victims also of human trafficking and sex slavery, and double curses upon the heads of those who are the perpetrators, the profiteers, and those perverts that traffic in this human misery. Finally, blessings upon the homeless. Nearly 600,000 men, women, and children without a roof over their head right now in the United States. And millions around the world in similar or worse conditions, and blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. Today, I want to talk about the schedule that came out, the New York Knicks schedule that came out yesterday. Now, I want to start off by saying, I'm not going to get into the matchups right now. And the reason is because beside R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, because he signed a new contract, Jericho Sims, because he signed a new contract, and Jalen Brunson, because he signed a new contract, those are the only four players that we're guaranteed to see on opening night. Anybody else can be traded. And there's so much speculation going on that those are the only facts that we have. Okay. So those four players, we are pretty much, barring injury, guaranteed to see on opening night. Nobody else is guaranteed to be seen on opening night. Nobody else. No matter what you think, what you feel, whatever, that's irrelevant. The only four players that are guaranteed to be on the roster opening night are Jalen Brunson, R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and Jericho Sims. Nobody else. So it's hard to talk about matchups. It's hard to talk about game to game without knowing who the roster is going to be. Okay. But one thing we can guarantee in terms of factual, the Knicks will have at least 12 players on the roster. Okay. So they're going to have a roster. So in terms of the schedule, the more important thing is not, at this point anyway, is not the matchups themselves, what teams they're playing, who they're going to play, and how they're going to win or lose. No, what's more important is the schedule in terms of the rigorousness, the rigor of the schedule. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, because this is the thing. I made an assumption, and some of you can do some research and correct me if I'm wrong. But I would assume that all 30 teams in the NBA play an equal amount of back-to-backs. Okay, they play an equal amount of back-to-back games so that nobody has an advantage in that area. Now, they don't play them obviously at the same time. Okay. They play them at different times. And then all NBA teams have an equal amount for sure of road games. So there's 41 home games, 41 road games. So every team is going to have a road trip. But again, they're not all at the same time. So when they occur is extremely important in terms of the one-loss record, no matter what your roster is, because the NBA 82-game season is one of the biggest grinds in sports. I mean, the baseball, they play, 162 games. That's a grind, right? But they'll stay in one city for a week, and so it's not like they traveling all the time, like day to day, like the NBA. I think the other, one like is hockey, because football is more physical, but they're only playing 16, 18 games. But in terms of a grind, basketball and hockey probably two greatest grinds in the major sport. And so in the NBA, that grind is why I'm saying to you all, like in terms of, let's say, for example, Mitchell Robinson is your starting center. Isaiah Hartenstein probably won't be traded either. So let me add him too. So Hartenstein won't be traded. So you're going to have Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, but Jericho Sims is going to see time. It's a grind, an 82 game grind. And all three of those cats are going to end up seeing time. Significant minutes at different parts of the season because of the grind. Okay. Thibodeau says it all the time. Everybody's going to play. Even though he tries to grind his starting five into the powder, everybody's going to play because it's an 82 game grind. Now, that being the case, I want to talk about the scheduling. The Knicks play a total of 12 back-to-back series in this season. And again, I'm going to assume that every team does that. But the thing about the Knicks is between November and December, okay, basically the first 2 months of the season, you get a little October, but November, December, there are 6 back-to-back series for the Knicks. Okay, they're playing 12 games back-to-back. Okay, 6 back-to-back, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 12 games between November and December back-to-back. Now, why do I mention that? Because that means the beginning part of the schedule is rough, because also in November, they have a 5-game Western road trip. So you add 12 back-to-back games and include in that a 5-game Western road trip, which includes also a back-to-back. That makes the beginning part of this schedule rough. Okay. Now, what's good about that? Well, first of all, what's important here is it's important that the Knicks get their roster together. The sooner the better. The sooner we know what the roster is, the sooner they can start working together, the sooner Thibodeau can start working on his defensive schemes and whatever offensive schemes he might have. But he can work on, and those guys can work together to get some continuity, because the Knicks generally start slow, especially defensive teams generally start slow in general. Okay. So that being the case, you add to that 12 back-to-back games, 5 straight on the road on a Western Conference road trip that includes all the top teams in the West. You got to be prepared. You got to be prepared. So the sooner the Knicks can get whatever trades they're going to get done, the better. Okay. I don't believe they want to wait until training camp to get whatever deals they're going to get done if they want to be successful this year, because you don't want to wait to the last minute with this stuff. So I expect whatever deals they're going to get done by the end of August, early September, so that whoever the new players are that are coming in and whoever the players that are going out, they can all get acclimated to their new teams, their new systems, so on and so forth, because this is a murderous schedule. Now, the good thing about it is that if they're having these big time road trips early, the schedule gets a little easier later. Okay. Which is good for the Knicks because they start to find their groove generally after 25, 30 games. See, so 25, 30 games, you start to know who your basic rotation is, who your starters are. They get in a groove together, used to playing together. And now the Knicks generally, a defensive team, start to turn it up, after 25, 30 games. And that's when you're starting to see the best of them. Okay. So the first part of the season is murderous. It's important that they get their team together, that they know who their rotation is early, that they get practice together, work out together, acclimated to each other. Very important. And this is why it's really key that the Knicks have some continuity again, because now let's say, for example, they get a Donovan Mitchell. So you're bringing in a new guy, a Donovan Mitchell, right? You're sending out some players. So you're going to have Donovan connect with the team, and you're going to need them to understand each other, to see each other, get used to each other. It's going to take some games, but you want to start it as early as possible. Let's say they don't get Donovan Mitchell, but they send out Julius Randle and Obi becomes the starter. You want Obi to get acclimated with the starting unit. Okay. And let's say Grimes becomes a starter. You want them, whoever that is, you want them to get acclimated with the starting unit. And it's good that, say, Obi, Grimes, RJ, Mitchell Robinson, they've all played together. Okay. They've all played together. They're not new to each other. They've all played together. They know what each other's tendencies are. They start to understand each other. It's important that gets acclimated as early as possible in this season, because if we can have our roster solidified early, that's why, again, I'm really like hoping they forget this Donovan Mitchell thing, because if we can continue with the guys we got continuity, right? And so they can get together early. They can, and Jalen Brunson's a new piece, right? So he's got to get acclimated to Obi and Mitch Rob and RJ. And as much as they can get acclimated with him being now, he's going to have the ball in his hands 90% of the time. He's going to be calling the plays. He's going to be the coach on the floor. He's the point guard that we've been waiting for. We need him to really get acclimated with who he's going to be on the floor with him in the starting unit. Okay, very important. So they have 12 back-to-backs. They got 6 back-to-backs between November and December. They got a 5-game road trip in the West Coast in November. Now, the good thing is in December. I mean, that's not all. Let me just, before I get to the good thing, one more bad thing. Aside from the November 5-game road trip, they got 2 3-game Eastern Conference road trips in December. Okay, that's murderer's row too. Even though you're in the East, so you got a 5-game Western swing in November. You got 2 Eastern Conference 3-game straight road trips in December. Okay, now, the next big road trip they have, a 4-game Western Spring, is in March. By then, we know what the Knicks are, good or bad. Okay, by March, we will know what they are. Okay, if they're acclimated, they should be running on all cylinders by then. Yes, a road trip is still a road trip, but we'll have an understanding of what we have. There'll be no surprises. They'll play at their best for that road trip. Now, the good thing is, in December, they have 2 4-game homestands. Okay, that's very, some of those, they include a back-to-back, but they're at home. So there's no travel. So early in the season, with all of this hard stuff, 6 back-to-backs, 5-game Western road trip, 2 3-game Eastern road trip. During the midst of all of that, in December, they have 2 4-game homestands. So that helps them recover, right? Playing at home. And I'm expecting, and this is why, again, it's extremely important that Tom Thibodeau establishes the defensive presence early. We cannot play around with no Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier garbage this year. We got to come out the gate establishing ourselves on the defensive end. That way, when people come to the Garden, they know they're going to have hell to pay. Okay, regardless, they're going to have hell to pay because of the defense. Okay, so that's why, again, it's very important that we know who the roster is. Very important that we have a defensive identity. That's why also, again, I was saying, if they don't do the Mitchell deal, I don't have no problem with that, because Grimes and Cam, whatever way you want to put them in, you put them in with RJ and JB and Mitch Rob and Obi, you have a better defensive squad right there. And you can establish that so that people come in, they know the Knicks are going to get after you on the defensive end. Okay? They know that. And that being the case, and hopefully there's no injuries early. No early injuries, so that we can get that group established. Everybody's healthy. We're ready to go. Okay. Now, again, that's why I'm saying offensively, people focus too much on that, because you start getting and you set yourself up for disappointment. Tell you right now, it's going to be a grind offensively in the first 25, 30 games. You got to give Brunson time to know his personnel, who he's dealing with, where they're going to be, what their tendencies are, where they want the basketball. Point guard needs all that. It takes time. So the offense, and that's why I say they start slow, because the offense is going to come after the defense. Defense is the priority. Defense is Tom Thibodeau's calling card. They should have a defensive identity from day one. Night one against Memphis, in Memphis, that should start off with a defensive, skirmish. Memphis shouldn't be getting no 130 points on us, even in Memphis. It should be a low scoring, grinded out affair in Memphis. Okay. No matter who the personnel is, because Tom Thibodeau is supposed to be, well, he is. I can't trip on him. He's a defensive coach. So we got to come out with a defensive identity from night one. Offensively, they may look ugly. You may miss, you're going to see a lot of chippy misses. You're going to see a lot of free throw might be missing, all of that. But defensively, they have to come out on point. Okay. No pun intended. That starts with Jalen Brunson. All right. So, That's why I'm looking at the schedule, and that's what hits me, right off the bat. There are there's only one back-to-back in January. That helps out a lot. There's only one back-to-back. They end up doing like 2 games at home, 2 games in a row, 1 game home, 1 game road in January. It's basically a regular grind, NBA grind. February, you got 3 back-to-backs. March, you got 2 back-to-backs. And March includes that 4-game Western road trip. So the early part of this season is important. Now, let's talk about the possibilities. The Knicks can sink or swim between November and December. Okay? If they come out and struggle and they're not playing good defense and the offense is struggling, I predict Tom Thibodeau would be fired by the All-Star break. World Wide West would be pushing. From last year to this year, he'd be out. And you'll have Johnny Bryant as your interim head coach. Okay? And I don't know what happened. I trust Bryant. I like him. We all have our druthers. Let's get Mark Jackson. Let's get this one. Let's get that one. Whatever. But I'm going to tell you the real. Johnny Bryant would be the interim head coach. What happens after that, we'd find out, but we probably won't know to the end of the season when they start evaluating new talent and evaluating Johnny Bryant. But they're going to give him the first shot because he is now the associate head coach. Okay? So that's his title officially. So he would become the head coach. That's what would happen if they start off bad like that. I mean, on both sides of basketball. If they start off like demons on the defensive end and they just trying to get it together the offensive end, we should be all right. We'll hold our own. Around that 500 mark until January, February. Then if they start clicking offensively, like RJ especially, he comes on in the second part of the season. That's if you look at his last 3 seasons, that's how he's done. Then all of a sudden, they'll be in good shape going toward the end of the season, talking about playoff. But if they start clicking offensively early, and Tom Thibodeau has the Tom Thibodeau defense starting from opening night, the Knicks are going to be a dangerous team. Okay? And that's the key here. We're going to find out. That's what's the key about this schedule. Because if they can come out like gangbusters on the defensive end, and that's an expectation we should all expect. That's something we should all come to expect right now. And we shouldn't be disappointed. They should come out like gangbusters. That's what I'm saying. Forget Fournier. That ain't happening this year. You need a defensive stopper. If you're not going to have Donovan Mitchell, which creates other issues that we all know, you need a defensive stopper next to Jalen Brunson. And that ain't Evan Fournier. Okay? So I don't even know. Again, we don't know who's going to be on the roster, but I'm going to guarantee you, raw Hebrew right now, Evan Fournier is not starting. He's not. We can't have the same debacle we had last year defensively to start the season. No. And I'm not telling you because of my opinion. I've known enough about Tom Thibodeau to tell you that ain't happening. Not this year. Okay? So, I'm expecting defensive toughness starting opening night. And I think we all should expect that. But what we don't know is how well and how quickly Brunson will have the offense running on all cylinders. That's what we don't know right now. Brunson's the key here. Okay? So he's going to have the ball in his hands most of the time. He's going to set up the offense. Sometimes you're going to see RJ at the point of attack. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So we're going to see how this works. If the Knicks can start off better than their norm, above their mean offensively, and come with the same defensive intensity we saw 2 years ago, the league is going to have a problem. Because if they come through that first half of the season in better than 500 shape, the league's going to have a problem. Okay? At that point. That's a best case scenario. So we have different scenarios that we just named. There's the best case, there's the worst case in which Thibodeau ends up getting fired, and then there's the more likely, which is tough defense, slow to develop offensively, and then later on in 25, 30 games, then they start clicking on all cylinders offensively. That's what we'll probably see. But this schedule is going to make them sink or swim because it is a tough schedule in terms of the number of back-to-backs early, the number of long road trips early. This is a tough schedule. But tough schedules are balance themselves out. Like I said, they start off tough. If they start off like this tough, they end up more than reasonable for favoring the Knicks later on. So it's important that how we start this year. Very important, brethren. And so we got, the Don's got to do whatever work he's going to do. If he's trading somebody, keeping somebody, whatever he's going to do, he needs to get that done before training camp. See, Ainge don't care because this is he's in full rebuild mode. All this other stuff is BS, wanting to pair Donovan with Sexton or whatever. He's in rebuild mode. And this whole crap that came out of Stephen A. Stupid's mouth yesterday. I mean, come on. First of all, we have established, and I think we agree for the most part, Ainge is in full rebuild mode. Why would he want a 4-year, $100 million contract when he's in full rebuild? It's got nothing to do with Julius Randle as a player, which Stephen A. Stupid tried to make it sound. They didn't want it. It's not that. His contract, the money, follow the money. The Ainge ain't taking on 4 years, $100 million. He's trying to get rid of Mitchell's contract. So it ain't about Randle, the player that he didn't want him. That conversation was probably squashed in the first phone call in early July. Use Randle, no. Cause even the Don knows this is what this dude trying to rebuild. He looking for picks and young talent, not long-term contracts. So that's why he wouldn't want Julius. Okay. Whereas the Lakers are trying to win a chip now. So they're trying to get as much talent as they can right now. LeBron just signed a 2-year, $97 million extension yesterday. So, they trying to win right now while they got LeBron and he can still play at a high level. Okay. LeBron James, I don't care what people say. This guy's a generational talent and you could put him with 5 guys from high school and he'll make them a playoff team, even at age 37, 38. Okay. But you want to get him as much talent as possible. Kyrie's not available and they don't got time to wait for him. So they got to try to get somebody in there. Julius Randle fits the bill. Okay. So that's what I'm saying to y'all. Ainge wouldn't be wanting Julius because of the contract. He's not asking for no 4 years, $100 million when he's trying to rebuild. Anyway, so that's the situation right now, in terms of the schedule. Again, it's a very rigorous schedule to start the season for our New York Knicks. Very rigorous to start the season. Very important how they get off. Very important that they establish their roster as soon as possible. And then hence from there, their defensive identity early. Forget offense. We're not worried about offense right now. You stay in games early when you can lock up people on the D. Then when you do that and your offense comes, especially a defensive team, now you're going into the playoffs as a defensive juggernaut with offense clicking on all cylinders. That's what you want. Okay. Cause you cannot go anywhere in the playoffs unless you can play some defense. Okay. So this is where we at. Very exciting, brothers and sisters. Tonight, me and Jay Ellis, and I'm not sure who it is. Maybe Ryan G will be in the building, but we're going to get together on Nick of Time and talk more about this schedule. But I wanted to break this out for y'all so you can see what's going on. The issue is not the individual matches with the teams because we don't even know who the roster is yet. Once we get an idea in training camp of what the roster is, then we could talk about how they're going to match up with Memphis or how they're going to match up with Boston or whoever, whatever, you see. But we can't deal with that now because we don't know what the roster going to be. We only got 5 guys that we know is going to be there. Like I said, JB, RJ, Mitch Robb. You're going to know Jericho Sims and Hartenstein. Those are the only 5 dudes that's guaranteed to be there opening night. Other than that, we all speculating. We don't even know. Okay, so it is what it is. But we'll find out hopefully soon for both the Knicks' sake and like I said, the Knicks team and for Thibs' sake, because he better be on his game this year because he is on a short leash with the front office because, Worldwide West wanted his head last year. So he got to come out correct. And for him, that means defense. And we should expect that. Anyway, y'all enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Sure.